It's already been 1 year since I brought some of my plants from my apartment in Spain to my new house in the Benelux. Something you are well aware of if you watch my video, How to Transport San Pedro Cacti. How have they been doing since? Well, last year they certainly did not grow as fast as they would grow in Spain. This is due to a much shorter growing season here in the north of Europe. In November it started to be too cold for them to be outside, so I transferred them to the garage for the winter. The plan was not to carry on growing them with lights and heating. Instead, it was to put them in hibernation with darkness and cool temperatures. This is the first time ever that I put cacti in full dormancy, since on the Mediterranean coast you obviously don't need to do that. In this video, I will show you how their first sleepy winter went for them. Not too well, as a matter of fact. I will tell you what went wrong and show you what can be saved out of the plants that got sick. My house in the Benelux comes with a small storage unit that is attached to the back of the garage. It is cool and dark, which are the requirements to put cacti in full dormancy. There is a bit of light coming from the window on the door, as well as a small window on the back wall, but it's still rather dark in there. The place may look quite bright to you, but that's because the door is opened. Also, my phone camera makes it appear brighter than it really is. If you think it would be better for them to be in total darkness, please let me know in the comment section, as I am totally new to cultivating cacti in colder regions. Temperature-wise, the coldest temperature we've had this winter was -8 centigrade, which is 18 Fahrenheit. That was just for a couple of nights. But during December, January and February, it was common to have -4 centigrade, which is 25 Fahrenheit. Keep in mind these temperatures are the ones forecast for the coldest hour of the night, usually around 5 or 6 in the morning. During the day it was obviously warmer. Also, these are temperatures outside in the open. Inside the building, it was a few degrees higher. Whenever they announce -4 centigrade, which is 25 Fahrenheit or even lower, I turned on a small electric heater in that building just to make sure it never reaches freezing point in there. I would take a quick look at the plants whenever I went in that building, and I could tell that some of the larger ones were not doing great, although the full extent of the damage only revealed itself on the 19th of April when I took the plants out into the daylight. I have a pretty good idea of what went wrong. There are two reasons. First, I moved the plants inside the building while the soil in the pots was still wet. I knew it had to be dry before dormancy, but it rained a lot during the months of September and October, and the soil never got a chance to dry. Inside the building, it probably took a couple of months for the soil to dry out completely due to the cold winter temperatures. And as you know, these plants don't like to have their roots wet and cold for weeks on end. The other issue was that almost all of these larger cacti were cuttings, cut 5 or 6 months earlier so that I could transport them. And the part that is planted below soil level didn't get enough time to cork. In Barcelona, with warmer weather, it takes them about 1 year to fully cork. When the part of the cactus that's in the soil is still green, then the risk of rot increases. You really don't want the soil to be wet for an extended period of time, and even less wet and cold. So these are the two reasons why this plant didn't have a good winter. A wet soil and no corking below the soil level. Now let's take a look at the damaged plants one by one. I will show you what happened and what needs to be cut if anything can be saved. This short one is in really bad condition, so I'll pull it out of the pot. I use these thick latex gloves to keep my hands clean and smooth, but they also offer some degree of protection against small spines. It has made some roots already, but it hasn't fully corked yet, and that's what makes it more fragile. It feels quite firm to the touch, which means the process of rotting has only just started. In most cases, the rot comes from the base of the plant, below the soil surface, and then progresses upwards. But here, on the contrary, it comes from the top down. It usually stops by itself at some point, as rot grows easier from bottom to top than the opposite. If I were to leave the plant as is, the rot on top would eventually dissolve and fall off. But I think it's cleaner to cut it off, and this way you will get a new pup faster. This is the same plant in early November before I moved it indoors. This wound started as one of those small cavities that are left after a flower, just like the one on the other rib. They normally dry up and heal, but with all the rain that fell last autumn, they've been constantly filled with water, and this cavity eventually rotted. And then, with the plant weakened by dormancy, the rot extended. The same problem occurs on this other Pacanoy, also shot in early November. You can see the original hole left by the flower, and around it, a blister of rot has formed. Normally, the plant can fight this off, and the damage would remain at that stage. But during dormancy, the cactus defense system works in slow motion. Other factors also contributed to the extension of the damage, mainly the uncorked base buried in cold wet soil, the high humidity, and the lack of airflow inside the building. Here is another one of them, as it is now. I need to cut the rotten part away. You shouldn't be able to see any rot on the cut section. Otherwise, you will have to make another cut lower down. In this case, there is a very slight amount of brown around the vascular ring. Now that the plant is returning to life, I think it might be able to fight it off, so I will leave it as is. Of course, I will keep a close eye on it in case the rot returns. This Bridgetsi looks rotten. It is very soft to the touch, confirming that it's all dead inside. The first cut looks bad, as you would expect, so I will make a few more cuts to see if it gets a bit better lower down the stem. This cutting was not doing well before the winter. It was already very yellow and weak, and it didn't have roots, so I'm not surprised it's one of the fatalities. But before I throw it away, it's always a good idea to double check if the entire plant is rotted. After a few cuts, I eventually find an area with no rot. Just a tiny little orange spot is left on one of the ribs, so I shave it off, and that's it. Maybe this last section can be saved. This cutting of Francis was left cooking in the sun on my terrace in Barcelona, and when I found it, it was so yellow that I had high doubts it would ever recover. It was a very weakened plant, like all yellow plants are, so I'm not surprised it was among the casualties this winter. The lower part has rotted, and the cactus eventually broke. I will free the other part that still looks half alive, and I will see if it could recover, of course keeping it away from the sun. When cacti are yellow, they need a lot less sun, if any at all. I'd say it probably has a 50% chance of surviving, but likely with a much smaller growth rate due to the yellow color. These two San Pedros have the rot coming from the top. They both had wounds on their upper parts before winter, and those probably started to decompose due to the humidity and cold inside the building. This image was taken just before I moved them to the garage. As you can see, the fatter one is split near the top, and there is another split lower down. I hardly ever had any San Pedro that splits like this, but my guess is overwatering. I didn't actually water them at all, it's just that it had been raining constantly and the plants had no shelter. As for the thinner Pacanoy next to it, it's once again that issue with the flower cavity that rotted due to holding rainwater for too long. And by the way, that cute little snail has nothing to do with the wound, it just happened to be there. As you can see, the fatter one eventually managed to fight off the infection. You can see that the rot has finished to develop because you have a very distinct line between healthy green flesh and complete decay. If the rot was still in movement, it would appear yellow at the line and not completely brown and mushy. The other one did not fight it off. You can tell that the rot started at the top because the top was the first to rot and is now all dried and shriveled. Nothing can be saved on that plant, so I will pull it out. It doesn't look like it had made any roots, which didn't help. On the other one, I will now separate the sick top from the healthy lower part. Well, sort of healthy, but I don't think this rot spot will extend, and that split only affects the looks. The first cut reveals some rot at the back, so I will make another angle cut to remove it after cleaning my blade with alcohol. You should always disinfect the blade after it touches rotten tissues. And then afterwards, I clean the cut with more alcohol. Cacti can change color when they are exposed to cold, and these colors can be similar to the ones you see here. But in this case, I'm pretty sure this is rot, because if it were from cold, then the entire cactus would wear these colors, and it wouldn't just be a patch at the base. Plus, many other plants are rotting, so it's likely to be the same issue. It is hard to the touch, but give it some time and I'm sure the flesh will decompose. This Peruvianus looks like it has rot coming from its base, and at first glance I thought that must be why it's tilted. But it's firm to the touch, therefore I don't think the rot is at a stage where the plant would collapse. Most likely it just moved inside the pot. This is probably due to a higher proportion of perlite in the soil mix. My normal soil mix for adult Trichocereus is 2 parts soil, 1 part earthworm castings, and 1 part perlite. But here I wanted better drainage to compensate for the rain, so I put more perlite, which fluidifies the soil. I will leave this Peruvianus out of its pot for a while, placed vertically in the shade of the house. I will cut it another day. The other 2 cacti that were in the same pot, both of which are fine, will also stay there for a few days. The roots need to be aired so that they can repair themselves. I did break a few roots as I was untangling them, and if I were to replant them as is, it could possibly lead to rot. A few days later, the line I had made with a marker pen hasn't changed at all. I think that the plant has managed to fight off the rot. I could just leave it like this, the bottom part would dissolve, and the top part would survive. That's how it happens in nature. But instead I will free it from what will soon become a gooey mess. Also, a fresh cut will make it root faster. The biggest loss for me were these 2 cuttings of Pacanoi Masia. Masia is one of those sacred cacti that I got from a hippie community in Spain where it is grown for ceremony use. The one on the right looks completely dead, but the other one still has life in its upper part. If I remember well, I only had these 2 pieces of Masia, which means seed production with this strain is seriously compromised for the future. This piece pulls out very easily as it hardly made any roots. As you can see, the skin has not corked yet, which is why it got sick in that cold wet soil for so long. The flesh is very soft and mushy, which is typical of advanced rot. I'm pretty sure the entire plant is dead, but I will double check on that before I get rid of it. With that piece laying down, I make a series of cuts just to confirm that the rest of the plant is beyond hope. On the other piece, I mark where the rot stops for monitoring purpose. The top of this plant will make it, but now being so short, I doubt it will make new flowers this year or in the next few years. About 4 days later, I pull it out. It has not made any roots either. The rotten part has degraded further, but the rot hasn't progressed upwards. After a first cut, there is still a bit of rot, so I will need to make another cut. But first, let's clean the blade with alcohol. There's a tiny bit of orange, but I will leave it like this because I think the plant has already managed to fight it off. I'm pretty sure that, even if I had not cut it, the rot would have not moved up any further. Now, if on the other hand it was still in movement, then that would be a different story, and you would really want to cut a good inch above the rot. If you want more information on Masia, I dedicated a video to it. It has a distinct blue tone, and crossed with Francis, it's absolutely stunning looking. Appearing now on the screen is a Sardaniola A1 times Masia, which one of my viewers, Tim from Las Vegas, sent me. It's bluish, but not as blue as when Masia is crossed with Francis. However, this one appears to grow very fast, as Tim grew it to this size in just 1 year starting from seeds. I still have all these varieties available. Now is the time to get them, if you haven't already, because it's probably going to be several years before I get more seeds with Masia, since I'm only left with a short cutting of it, and it's unlikely to flower until it's grown back to a much larger size. If you're interested in buying some of my seeds, please send me an email. You will find my email in the description of this video. I will also make it appear on the screen now. It's sanpedromastery@protonmail.com. In your email, just say that you're interested in my seeds and mention which country you're from. I will email you a list of my seeds with prices, photos, and various information. Next year, I still don't know if the plants will hibernate in the same building or if I will have them inside the greenhouse. I still have time to decide and I will keep you updated. In any case, if I put them in full dormancy again, I definitely will protect the plants from the rain for about a month before, so that the roots are dried before storage. By then, the buried part of my plants will also have fully corked, so hopefully their second winter in the cold will take place without issues. I will also check on them more often and thoroughly throughout the winter instead of a quick glance every few weeks. Growing cacti outdoors in colder regions is not as easy as in Spain when you can just forget about them in your garden and they will probably do okay, as long as they have some shade. Still, a lot of people grow cacti in cold countries without any issue, so I guess I will just need to learn from my mistakes and adjust. I have another video coming very soon about those shading structures that I built for my cacti in various sizes. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so that you don't miss it. All for now, thanks for watching my videos and take care my friends.